Morning. We are just waiting for one other commissioner to join via WebEx or show up late, and then we can get this going. So if we'll all just hang out together. William, you ready? Okay, cool. Good. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. The time is now 9:07. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting off the ground. We are here in the Doña County Government Center, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able to just stand, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and with that being said, we will do the roll call, and then as commissioners join either in person or telephonically, we will announce them and then also read into the minutes the time that they joined. So Brandy, go ahead.
Commissioner Gameros,
Present.
Commissioner Reynolds, Commissioner Sanchez, Vice Chair Chaparro, Chair Shaldo Hernandez.
Here. So we do not have quorum, but we are just going to do the first agenda item presentation, and then we can do the motion in the second to take action on it when we have a quorum. So the first item up is the resolution approving Doña County's fiscal year 2024 to 2025 fourth quarter financial report ending June 30th of 2025. And we do have our budget and research officer as well as our finance director here today to navigate this presentation with us. So welcome, Lucio. Good morning.
Chair, Commissioner Gameros, Lucio Luttrell with the Budget Office. So today I'll be going over the first item, which is our FY25 fourth quarter report. And we'll be looking at how the county ended with our year-end figures June 30th, 2025. Jumping right into our countywide sources of revenues, I'll just go over the layout of each slide. So we do have our FY25 adopted budget, our adjusted budget as adjusted throughout the year, and our FY25 actuals. So this is how we ended the year. And then our percent of budget, so how much of our actuals made up our adjusted budget. And I'll start with our tax revenues. So our tax revenues are made up of GRT, property tax, and other taxes such as flood tax, compensating tax, gas tax, our cannabis tax, and payment in lieu of taxes. You'll see that we came in at $157.6 million, which is 99.9% of our adjusted budget of $157.76. You'll also see that it was greater than our adopted budget. Within our service revenues, we came in at $30.4 million versus our budget of $32.4. So we were slightly under at 94%. That has to do with our care of prisoners. So we had 11 months post for our federal care of prisoners billing. And so we're waiting on the 12-month post, and it will be posting in July. We also have other revenues of around $9 million versus our budget of $8.2 million. So that came in at 110%. And this was made up our fire and EMS distributions, Secretary of State funding, penalties and interest, late charges, and some other miscellaneous items. And overall, the subtotal, which is equivalent to our total operating revenue, came in at $204 million versus our budgeted $201.4 million. So that 101% is what we really want to focus on. So we want that number to be at 100% or higher. That means our revenues came in well this year. And then moving down to our grant section, you'll see that revenue came in at $56 million versus $170 million. People will see that and say only 33%. And the reason being is we budget at 100% of our grant balances. So a lot of our grants are multi-year grants. They carry over from year to year. But the reason we budget 100% of that is to make sure that we have the funds available to obligate POs and enter into contracts for those grants. Bottom line, we had $263.7 million in revenue versus our budget of $371.6. Moving on to our general fund. So our general fund is pretty much our primary operating fund of the county. So this really shows the county's health, our financial health, and how well we are doing. And we do have the same categories here. So our tax revenues came in at 100% of our budget, so at $110 million. Service revenues at 4.1 versus the 4.6 budgeted. Other revenues at 3.6, and our investment revenues at 4.2. So we did well on the investment revenue side this year. Our county treasurer invests the county's cash, and our return has been higher than previous years. So our total operating revenue came in at $122.4 million versus our adjusted budget of $120 million. Moving over to our county expenditures. So this will highlight county personnel costs, operating costs, debt service, capital outlay, and grants. So what we're really looking at is to stay within budget. So the last column, our percentage budget, we want to see that we are under the 100% mark. And as you can see, our personnel costs came in at 89.7 million versus our budget of 93.1. And that also includes a 27th pay period. So the way the pay periods landed this year, we had a pay period in early July of last year, and the way the last one landed this year, it ended up being 27 versus our budget is typically established on a 26 pay period basis. We had operating costs of 98 million versus our budget of 110, debt service of 2.4 million versus 2.4 budgeted, and our total operations came in at 190 million versus our budget of 205, so 93% of our budget. Moving down to capital outlay, we did have 24.9 million spent versus our 59.6. This is similar to grants. We have multi-year projects, and so you'll see in the next presentation that we do have various carryover items that will be budgeted into next year so we complete those projects and purchases. And then on the grant side, we had 57.7 million in expenditures versus 191 million budgeted. Overall, we had actuals of 273 in expenditures versus our budget of 456 million. And this is a slide with all the numbers, the department breakdown. So we're not going to go through every single item. We know we provided the notes to you so you can see some of the details there, but we will highlight a few of the departments because as you can see, there are some that went over the 100% budget mark. But I do want to mention that the total of these slides, so you'll see on the far bottom right, the 190.15 matches up to our 190.15 total operations here. So it's pretty much the breakdown of personnel, operating, and debt service by department. So with our first department that we'll highlight, we organize this in the order of percentage. We had our HR department, so they did go over budget by 10%, but this was within coordination with the department. So they had some invoices come up in the second half of the year. They coordinated with the budget office.
Lucio, really quick, sorry to interrupt. Brandy, will you please let the record reflect that at 9:15, Commissioner Sanchez joined us via WebEx?
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have quorum at this time, so I do want to go ahead and get a motion and a second going for the resolution, then we can continue on with the presentation, Lucio.
So moved.
And I'll go ahead and second. So we have a motion by Commissioner Gameros and a second by myself, Brandy. And Commissioner Sanchez, you can hear us, correct?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you, sir. Okay, sorry, Lucio, go ahead.
No worries. So I will begin with Human Resource Department on this slide. So they did have year-end expenditures of 3.34 million versus the 3.03 million budgeted. So they did go over budget, and that was due to 27th pay period that posted and some unexpected costs such as unemployment insurance and some professional service items that came up. So we did coordinate with the department before we went over budget, and we did have general fund budget savings to be able to take on those costs in fiscal year 25 versus having to incur those in FY 26. The auditor also went over budget by 10%, and this is pretty much because of his salary and benefits. So there was that 27th pay period that posted, and we also work in a vacancy factor for each department for vacancies throughout the year, and being that he is a one-man show, he had no vacancies. Moving on to risk management. So they went over budget by around 143,000, and this was due to our general and law enforcement liability insurance that came in January. We were expecting this and we were monitoring it throughout the year, but we also expected there to be savings in general fund to be able to absorb those costs. Detention center went over around 338,000 or 1%, and that was primarily due to the 27th pay period, some incentive and overtime pay, and also the new union negotiation pay plan that occurred in the fall of last year. So we didn't adjust the budget at that point in time because we wanted to see how the costs came in during the year, and we would do a year-end adjustment if necessary. but it wasn't necessary because they did have savings within the capital side of their budget. Jetport went over 1% or around $5,000. And so that had to do with the 27th pay period. They were fully staffed throughout the year. And we also had general fund savings to be able to absorb that cost as well. So as we go down the list, you'll see that everyone was within the 100% of budget. As we move down, I'll highlight a few of the ones on the lower end. So I'll start with flood at 60%. So they're a restricted fund. Their funding could only be used for flood-related purposes, and their savings were throughout their budget. The clerk's restricted fund is restricted in nature for equipment recording and filing, so they can only use those costs by statute for recording and filing equipment. And then our community development waste exchange also came in under budget, and that is also restricted for the purposes of mitigating, illegal dumping, sanitation throughout the county. And our last item at the very bottom, our other non-departmental section, that is made up of OEM initiatives, DASSL Law Enforcement Protection Fund, GRT admin fees, Spaceport GRT, water and sanitation GRT, so other items that aren't specific to a department. Overall, our department total operations came in at $190.1 million versus a $205.2 million budgeted, or 93%. And then the last item I have on here highlighted is the OEM operating budget. So the numbers roll up within our grant section due to how the funding breakdown is in Workday, so I did want to highlight it. And I know it's cut off on the screen there, but let me get to my slide. It's also cut off on my screen. They had adjusted budget of $811 million, and actuals came in at around $678,000, so 84%. And I did want to highlight our general fund expenditures really quickly. So same thing as our county-wide expenditures, we came in under budget across the board. Our personnel costs came in at $56.8 million versus our $61.3 million budgeted. Operating costs at $35.6 million versus $38 million budgeted, which had our total operations at $92.3 million versus the $99.4 million. And then the same story with capital outlay, we had $4.8 million budgeted versus our $9.8 million in capital outlay, or our $4.8 million actuals versus the $9.8 million budgeted. And we came in under grant. So overall, we had $97.9 million in actuals versus our $110.4 million budgeted, or 89%. And moving on to our recap. So this summarized county-wide budgeted revenue and expenditures and how they came in by DFA fund type. So the left side is our DFA fund type. General fund is pretty much the county's primary operating fund. Special revenue are made up of funds typically restricted by legislation, contract, or grant. So some of these budgets includes detention, road, health, flood, assessor 1% fund, clerk equipment, recording fund, and some others. We also have our capital projects funds that's included, such as roads initiative, detention energy infrastructure project, airport grant projects, BOE warehouse, OEM facility. We have our debt service fund where we manage our debt service costs. Our enterprise fund is pretty much our utilities section, internal services fleet, and then our trust and agency, our funds for resources held for others, including property tax fund. So that's the big one in there where we collect property taxes and distribute it to the other entities. So overall, our beginning cash was $205.2 million. We had revenues of $263.73 million, expenditures of $272.8 million, and adjustments, which are the cash impact due to changes in balance sheet items such as payables and receivables and temporary cash transfers. And we ended our year-end cash $173.23 million. The bottom section has the breakdown by unrestricted, designated, and restricted type. So you'll see we began the year at close to $76 million for our unrestricted cash, and we ended at $79 million. So there was a slight increase there. Within our designated cash funds, we had $50.2 million, and that went to $45.46. And our restricted cash went from 79 to 48.7. So the big drop on our restricted side was due to our Spaceport GRT distribution that occurred in June. So our next step with the fourth quarter report is to get it submitted by the 31st, so we are currently working on that. We have some schedules, supporting schedules to get uploaded to DFA. But with that, I stand for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucio. I just want to make a comment to you and the staff. Really great notes. Thank you for getting this presentation out. Thank you for getting the notes out over the weekend. I can only imagine long hours this weekend getting this done, but fantastic job to you guys. Like, really concise in here and answers a lot of questions that I would have had just due to the notes. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair. Lucio, I echo the same as, oh my God, my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. As Commissioner Shalcho Hernandez. Yes, I love that you have those notations for us, and that really gives me a really good idea of what's going on with the budget, and I really do appreciate staff. You guys are just awesome. You're just on point, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez, anything on your end, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll continue to echo the same sentiments from my fellow commissioners. Lucio, you and your team have done a fabulous job of doing the research and explaining it up front, and it makes this the presentation as well as our jobs a lot easier, so that a lot of the questions are answered, and we really understand how much work you all put into it. So I want to say thank you for all the work you've done. And I know we saw something, you all do this similarly on the preliminary budget, but really appreciate it because it definitely makes this process go a lot smoother.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so at this time, is there any public comment? Any staff input? I mean, since we're here today, everyone is here today. Anything? No? Okay. Brandy, go ahead and roll call us on the fourth quarter preliminary or final ending June 30th.
Commissioner Gameros?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Chair Shaljo Hernandez?
Yes. Motion carries. Resolution is approved. Brandy, go ahead.
That resolution number is 2025-88.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a second resolution on the special meeting today, and that is a resolution adopting Doña County's FY 2025-2026 final budget. Commissioners, I move that we accept the 2025-2026 final budget. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, you have a motion by myself and a second by Commissioner Gameros. And once again, we do have our budget and research officer and our finance director here today. Lucio, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lucio Trau with the Budget Office. This presentation is for our FY26 final proposed budget. Being that we did all the legwork for the preliminary budget, we're not going to be repetitive. We're going to just highlight the changes from the preliminary approval to the final approval. Our agenda for this is we're going to go over the changes from preliminary to final, including our revenues and expenditures. We'll go over the budget overview, budget recap, our revenue and expenditure balance, and our next steps. We'll begin with our changes to the final revenue budget. There are only a few. We had an increase of $29.7 million in revenue from $312.1 million to $341.8 million. So this was due to our payment in lieu of taxes. So that's a payment we received from the federal government at the end of June. It came in a little bit higher than budget, so we adjusted around $70,000. We had the landfill fee revenue punch cards that you just approved at the July 22nd BOCC meeting. So it went from $4 a punch to $5 a punch. So we increased the budget related to that. And also Law Enforcement Protection Fund. So we received from DASO the carryover amount. We worked with them to work in carryover, as well as the new distribution for next year. And then we had department grant budget adjustments of around $29.53 million. Moving on to our final expenditure budget, we did have an increase of $16.55 million in expenditures from $387.38 to $403.93 million. So these are due to personnel costs, some operating costs and capital. I'll begin with adjustments to our personnel costs. So we do have 2 new positions that we were adding in the final budget. They pretty much didn't make the cut for the preliminary. They came up the day before and we didn't have time to make adjustments. So that is an additional HR administrator position to help with the department's workload. We also have the outreach promotora, which is a new position to be able to staff La Mesa Community Center, detention command staff COLA. So in this one, we're adding budget to reflect the 3% COLA that the other unrepresented were receiving, as the STEP plan will no longer exist. I think HR and management will be coming to the board next month to make those adjustments. We also had blue collar negotiations approved by the board of around $285,000 impact based on their new pay plans. And moving on to our adjustments to our operational and debt service costs. So there was an increase of around 2.8 million. And this had to do with various items. And most of these have come to the board recently. So this includes our fire grant program of 1.2 million from the hospital lease fund reserves. So this would be to the city of Las Cruces, town of Mesilla, and the city of Sunland Park in the form of grants to support fire-based emergency medical services. This was approved at the June 10th BOCC meeting. We also have a special audit that was unbudgeted of around 350,000. Engineering services of 300,000 to assist with the CRUA asset study and engineering recommendations. Law Enforcement Protection Fund adjustments. We also had emergency operators course carryover from last year's operating costs and facilities, so it's to complete the feasibility study and preliminary design. We had the grant to crew of 187,000 as approved for by the board, and that was to repair or replace fire hydrants in Santa Teresa, unincorporated areas, and industrial park. We added 168,000 for Chaparral wastewater treatment plant master plan, 115,000 for a multi-use trail, which was approved by the board back at the end of August, and this was for the vicinity of East Picacho Elementary School. We had LATCF, so Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund, cost adjustments of 120,000 for our IT section. So there's 3 different integrations they're going to go through this next year, and it costs around 40,000 each. And I apologize for the formatting here, but we had a fire EMS training of 100,000 as approved by the board at the July 22nd BOCC meeting. We included 75,000 for HDR communication services, and this is for communication and advisory services related to the county and CRUA agreement. Fairgrounds master plan completion of 64,000. We had a grant to the public schools that you approved last year, and this was for Elks Drive repair as they complete Columbia Elementary School. And we also had fire restricted fund adjustments, update to debt service, and our fire distribution EMS adjustments. Moving on to our adjustments to capital, we had around 3.06 million. So we did have capital and process adjustments of 1.5 million. And I won't go through each of these, but these items have been approved by the board in some capacity already. So we're just budgeting to complete various projects that are in process. The largest one being fire tax projects. So these are all the projects in our fire tax fund. We are budgeting to use the remaining cash in that fund because we no longer have a restricted GRT for fire tax. And the item that was cut off here, for some reason it's cut off in this presentation, but not on the printout, is for roads initiative. So we do budget for the remainder of the roads initiative projects that are going on. And on the right side, new capital, and I apologize for the formatting again. I'm not sure why it's a little off, but we had fire, ambulance, and EMS equipment of 1.35 million. So that one was approved by the board from the hospital lease fund at the June 10th BOCC meeting. And we also had water filtration stations of 200,000 to be budgeted from reserves for use in establishing outdoor water fountains and bottle filling stations in Santa Teresa and Radium Springs areas as part of a pilot project. So you approved that at June 24th BOCC meeting. And then lastly, our department grant submissions, we had adjustments of around 10.16 million. I'll quickly highlight what our countywide source of revenues look like. So as you can see, we're just showing the difference between what you approved at the end of May versus what we're approving today. And our final proposed budget includes tax revenues of 165.4 million, service revenues of 33.2, other revenues of 9.9, investment revenues of 5.02, which make up 213.6 million, and our grant revenues of 128 million for a total of 342. The chart on the right shows the breakdown by percentage. So as you can see, our largest revenue base is tax revenues, then it goes to grants, service revenues, other revenues, and investment revenues. Moving on to our countywide expenditures, our personnel costs make up 104.7 million, operating costs 114.2, debt service of 2.5 for total operations of 221.5, capital outlay of 48.3, and grants of 134.2 for a total budget, and for the first time in county history exceeding 400 million, it's 403.9 million budget. The breakdown on the right shows that our largest expenditure budget is made up of grants, and then we have operating costs and personnel costs following. So this is a picture of our final budgeted recap. So our beginning cash is what tied to our ending cash in the last presentation. Our grand total is 173.2 million. We have budgeted revenues of 341.8, budget expenditures of 403.9, which gives us budgeted ending cash of 111.1 million. After our reserve requirements of 25% in the general fund and 1/12 in the road fund, that leaves us adjusted ending cash of 79.5 million. So this represents a use of reserves of 62 million, which is normal when it comes to our final budget. We'll show you on the next slide how we have a balanced budget, but most of those are for one-time uses, or all of those are for one-time uses. And the bottom chart is just the cash restriction breakdown. So the top section broken down by restriction type. So we have our unrestricted, designated, and restricted. So you'll see that we are budgeting to spend 190 million in our unrestricted cash. So we'll have beginning cash of 79. If we spend 100% of our budget, revenues coming at 100%, we'll end the year at 59.3 million. So this is a slide that highlights our budget balance. So at the top, it shows our FY26 revenues of 341.8, our expenditures of 403.9, and that leaves us a budget deficit of 62.09 million. But once we take out our use of reserves, one-time uses, so we have our restricted funds, capital in process, new capital, potential payouts, one-time items in operations, and some recovery funds, we actually have a recurring budget surplus of 2.1 million. So this was our goal going into this year, because next year we do have the SAFER grant that is going to fall off, and the county's going to have to cover the cost of those 24 firefighters, which is around 2 million. The right side over here shows that our reoccurring revenues outweigh our recurring expenditures. So our total recurring revenues are 179.8 million versus our expenditures of 177.7 million. Our next steps for the final budget is to get this submitted to the state by Thursday, and DFA typically takes around a month to review it, and they submit their approval by September 1st. With that being said, stand for any questions.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, any comments or questions on the presentation today?
No, I'll say, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Of course.
I'll just echo, I'll keep saying the same thing. Lucio, thank you so much for the notes and the work put into preparing for this meeting and all of the upfront work that you were able to, the information to provide to us. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And kind of to also say the exact same thing, on slide number 4, you guys went over the changes to final expenditure budget. You put in the increases and the adjustments in operational and debt service cost, and your notes when the board voted on something, agreed to put that in the budget. You have the date when the meeting was, when it was approved, what it was approved for. And I just want to say thank you, because we do a lot of things up here on a regular basis, and it's hard to keep track of everything. And this really did give us the right information to look at this. The only question I have is on changes to final expenditure budget. If you can go to slide number 5 for me really quick. Yeah, there you go. So, and I wish that Stephen Lopez was here today, but we are offering that EMS grant to the municipalities to help stand up their EMS services. Do we know what part of the budget that's coming out of? I don't know if anyone here can actually answer that question. Oh.
Yes. So that is coming from the hospital lease fund.
Okay, so that's going to be the hospital lease fund, and how much did we pull out of there for that grant?
So it was the 1.35 million plus 1.2 million for the department. So we worked in a budgeted cash transfer to transfer it over to the fire budget.
Okay.
For it there.
And that's where it's going to go out to Anthony Hatch, Messia, and who else is involved in that? Do you know? Sunland Park. Oh, Las Cruces too?
Sunland Park, yes.
Sunland Park.
I
Wow.
got my notes right here.
Okay.
City of Las Cruces, Town of Mesilla, and the City of Sunland Park.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. That was really my only question because I know that was evolving and new. Anyone else? Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One
Commissioner
last comment, and I hope I'm not muddying the waters too much when I say this. Lucio, thank you for particularly the slide that you show the recurring expenses compared to our recurring revenues, and showing there is a slight surplus there, indicating that we're operating within the budget. The reason I want to highlight that is because there was a meeting during one of my constituent meetings. It was asked how we're doing with our finances. And I think this highlights the point that we have been we're being responsible with what we're projecting, how we're operating, and we plan it out with the department. So I appreciate all of the department's support in the budget process through the year. But the reason I say I'm muddying the water is because while we're continuing to grow and do more of these things, I know we have our Go Bond initiative that we are working through. And this is just an example that while we are still growing and doing this for the public when we're having these conversations, I hope that they'll be able to understand that, we look at this potential Go Bond for a step change and significant growth in bringing quality of life improvements. And this is not in any way, for us trying to help ourselves maintain and do any of those things. It's a matter of, that capital money's coming in, but we are being very responsible with the monies and still being able to provide more and more services even as we go along. But I just wanted to highlight that because I know I've seen some comments in the public that because we're doing this Go Bond initiative that we should, quote, stay within our budgets. And I think this presentation is an example showing that we're meeting the requirements of the state as well as those commitments to our constituents. So thank you so much, Lucio, for highlighting that. And I kind of took a little bit of a detour there, but just wanted to highlight that for the public to understand kind of what our budget is, how we're operating, how we're managing, and the difference in the Go Bond initiative that we've kicked off.
That didn't muddy the waters at all. I think that was well said. Thank you. Okay. Seeing none? Any public or staff comment while we're here? Anyone want to justify their budget before we cut it right now? No one? Madam Treasurer,
I got one. I just want to thank the departments for all the work they put into it, the hard conversations that we have in our budget meetings. And last week, I especially want to thank the accounting section because they were scrambling with their last minute postings coming in and just items coming up out of nowhere. So they did spend a lot of time while they're trying to cross train. So we do appreciate that. And then of course, Daniel, Eric and Mary, who are also part of the budget office. So we work well together. So I appreciate the efforts they put in.
No. Very well. And when do we start the next budget cycle?
Next board meeting,
Oh, great. Thanks. Wow.
we'll shoot for the fall of this year to start the budget cycle, get ahead of things. I know we have a work session coming up to talk about a few items. So,
Cool. Thank you. Okay, without any further comment? No? Okay. Brandy, go ahead and roll call the commission for me, please.
Commissioner Gameros?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Chair Sheldon Hernandez.
Yes. Motion passes, resolution's approved, budget's approved. How about that? Aw, yes, good job, everyone. Okay, Brandy, go ahead with that resolution number.
That resolution number is 2025-89.
Beautiful, thank you. And if that go bond resolution passes, this is gonna get even crazier next budget cycle. Hope you guys are ready. Okay, with that being said, the time is now 9:43, and we are gonna go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.